Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. We are delighted to have one of our partners with us, Chris from Continia. And Chris is going to be presenting on digital transformation. It's real and it's spectacular. And just as a reminder, we are recording this webinar and we will post it to our on-demand webinar library for you to review again or share with anyone. And you can find our library under our resources tab on our website. And we do encourage you to ask questions during our presentation, so please feel free to type them into the questions box and we will answer them at the end of our session. So now I'm going to turn it over to Chris to kick off our presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Innovia, for this opportunity, and thank you, everybody, for joining us here this morning. As mentioned, the subject of today is digital transformation. It's a theme, a term that's been around now for a while, but how do we put that into practice for distribution manufacturing companies like yours? How can you be part of the digital transformation? We feel our solutions can greatly benefit you in this process. And the good news is Innovia has trained consultants that can help you implement and support our products directly inside of your NAV and Business Central implementation. So you're in very good hands with them as well. So my name is Chris de Visser. I'm the CEO of North America for Continia. We have offices around the world. We are originally a Danish company. I'm based out of New York City, but here you can see some of our locations. Yeah, where we always start is what are the impact and the results of our solutions. And we found some customers that were willing to share their experiences here in public. One that I always like is and we had to look up this word, data enterers. Don Jenkins gave us a feedback that it really helped transitioning, transforming his accounting team, right? That digital transformation from data enterers to data analysts. So we can use resources much more efficient. Same for Monique at Basecamp. They had a lot of complexity because they're a multi-company organization, and the system can just read the documents and decide what this is about. If we look at the old days, a lot of people are involved in the finance processes, and that's Continia focuses on finance processes, accelerating those finance processes. And one way to accelerate it is obviously automate as much as we can. And in the old days, there were so many people involved. Everybody had to look at a document. Everybody had a little piece of information, and it was chasing down a lot of people throughout the organization. We've tried to map that out in a little diagram, especially if companies do purchase orders and purchase receipts as well. You can see that a single invoice goes through quite a couple of cycles before it's fully processed, from really just receiving it, scanning it, organizing it, matching it up to purchase orders, finding out who's going to approve this, chasing down those approvals, then making sure that everything is coded correctly, see if there's more approvals needed then, and then the data needs to be entered, right? Very cumbersome, very slow, which might cause some charges because you pay invoices late. And there's a lot of risk for errors in there as well, because people are manually doing this in many different rounds. With Continia, we try to accelerate that. We want to try to do that as much as possible in an automated way, but also, I say as much as possible, but also what you're comfortable with, right? So you don't need to automate everything. You could also choose to just automate vendors where you receive a lot of documents from, or expense users that you have a lot of expenses with. You choose the level of automation you want, from 100% to less, if that's better for your organization. So you can still do things the way you do them today. We just allow you tools to automate it more and faster. Yeah, manual data entry and validation. That's one of the things that we can improve on. Lots of companies do this. It takes a lot of time, error prone, right? So it's important that we keep an eye on that. That's one of the things that we want to improve on with our customers. The other thing that takes a lot of time is researching and chasing down approvals. How many times has your AP team been running around through the organization to get that one initial on the document as well? The CEO is out, he cannot sign off on something, stuff like that, right? It's important that you have a log of that as well, so that in the future that can be reported on. So it comes down to also internal controls. If you don't do things in a very organized, regimented way, you may have compromised internal controls. Maybe somebody is signing off on something that they shouldn't because the other person is not around in the organization, so somebody else just needs to sign off on it. With a system like Continia, we set up these rules once, and the system will enforce these rules upon everybody in the organization, or within the boundaries of what you accept, find alternatives for whatever reason, right? So these are like main things that we want to focus on. Also, a simple thing is archiving. Where's the original invoice? Is it deep down in the basement? Auditor wants to see it. How much time do you spend on retrieving that document each week? So where's the value add? Well, in improving these things, right? We want to help you do that, and we do that by helping you digitally transform the finance department. For that, we have 3 solutions available. You can use all 3 or them separate if you would like to. Continia Document Capture is our solution that focuses on AP automation, not just limited to AP automation, but the majority of our customers uses it for accounts payable automation. And I'll have a little bit of a walkthrough of that later on in this presentation as well, but I'll show you how we can help you automate vendor invoices that come in and processing those inside of NAV and BC. Another product we have that is expense management. It handles employees' expenses, corporate credit card reconciliation directly inside of NAV and BC. So very easy tool for expense users, just an app on their phone, as you can see in the background also. But for the finance team, the benefit is that everything is happening inside of NAV and BC. And the third product we have is document output. It gives you an overview of all the outbound documents. It allows you to generate emails automatically based on events and triggers happening inside of BC and NAV. And you have an audit trail of all these outbound emails as well. So a very good tool if you send out a lot of documentation to your vendors or your customers or your employees. A little bit more about Continia. 30 years of innovation. We come, like I mentioned, originally from Denmark. You may know that what is now Business Central previously was NAV, and that was a Danish company before Microsoft bought it. And we've been active in this space from very early on, 1992. Yeah, we have constantly been innovating and focused on the financial processes related to NAV and now Business Central. We offer about a 90% reduction in manual tasks, sometimes significantly higher. As I mentioned, you choose the level of automation that you like. We are convinced that you'll have the payback in less than 6 months. We can talk a little bit more about pricing when it comes to it later in the presentation. We have over 9,000 customers, and 1,900 of those are already on Business Central SaaS or cloud. And we're talking adding hundreds a month each and every month. So we're growing very rapidly in the BC space since that product got released by Microsoft. we have over 18,000 installs because we have more than one product, right? As you saw earlier, and we work with partners all over the world. Innovia is a great partner of ours, and as mentioned before too, they have consultants specialized in implementing our products, so they are your one-stop shop for anything NAV or Business Central. It's a no-brainer. That's how we like to see it, of course. And why is that? Well, we've kind of tried to go through that with our customers and our partners. Like, what are the things that we often hear back that we help them with? For the CFO and the controller, it's really around the reduction in related manual tasks. That is a big number, of course. That also contributes to that relatively short payback in implementing the continuous solutions. You can benefit from some of these payment discounts that vendors offer you if you process invoices on time. The Titan controls is a big one. No more complications with auditors and retrieving historical information. Everything is in a single place, right there in Nav and BC, where the financial information should be. So it's very easy to pull up and show the audit trail to your auditors. Less errors because the automation takes care of that, the validations that happen at the same time as well. So yeah, happy auditors is a big one for the CFO and the controller. When we look for the accounting team themselves, they don't have to stamp and code documents anymore. They don't have to struggle like digging through like manual notes on it. All of it is digital now. Approvers get chased by the system and can add comments to the documents as they're processing. These comments are also stored with the transaction, so also that is available for auditing later on. No more coding errors because it's directly happening inside of BC and Nav, and you don't have to file anything and papers anymore. Everything is digitally archived and available to you from wherever you are, if you have the right permissions, of course. So that also helps in terms of controlling who has access to what information. A couple other things. One that's applicable to all of our solutions. It's truly built inside and only for Business Central and NAV. So that's the only ERP family we support. All of our products are fully built inside of Nav and BC. All the code, all the data, everything resides in Nav and BC. It's your single source of truth. That's making us unique. It allows us a way deeper integration that really goes beyond just some basic high-level features. And that leads into the second bullet on the screen here, an automated three-way match on a line level. DC stands for document capture, so we try to highlight some things for the product specifically as well. We can really go to a line level on an invoice and match that to the receipt lines and the PO inside of Nav and BC, something that a lot of other solutions out there cannot do because they're not built inside, right? We have that level of detail right there available. We also have a separate approval portal if you want to engage approvers with document capture, but also with expense management. If you have people throughout the organization that you want to kind of help you coding these invoices, or at least give their approval on it, the system will notify them that there is invoices that require their attention. They can click on the link in the email and it brings them to the approval portal. I'll demonstrate that today as well, but it allows them to approve documents as they are traveling or as they're in the office, but they're not core Business Central users. We also, when it comes down to credit cards, have an integration with American Express, Visa, and MasterCard, where we can take the transactions that are posted by the banks live, pull those into Business Central, and we generate expenses based off of that data as well. We'll route those first to the expense user to attach a receipt, then to an approver, potentially using that same web approval portal that I was referencing earlier. And then once it's been approved and then gets posted by the finance team after they've done their checks, it automatically reconciles all those transactions directly inside of Business Central. So nobody has to keep an eye on that on a manual basis anymore. The system will put those together, and all you need to do is post these expenses and the reconciliation will happen automatically. So no puzzling things together anymore. For document output, it's the outbound documentation, right? So it live generates attachments. If you want to attach an invoice, an open invoice, or a customer statement, the moment the email goes out, the very minute before that, we generate the customer statement live inside of BC and is then attached to the email. So if somebody does an update inside of Business Central, it's always based off of the latest data that is available to the system. Some FAQs. One that we often get from companies in the manufacturing and distribution space, that we work with MEM. It's a multi-entity management solution. Of course, you can also use the general multi-company setups that Business Central allows, but yes, we work with that. As we're built inside, we work with that. The three-way matching we discussed before, yes, we can do a three-way match on some of your invoices. If we can have the data that we can match it against, we can match it, right? Do we have other types of documents that we support? Yes, we do. Actually, a lot of Innovia customers use our product beyond just AP. They take a customer PO, for example, and turn that into a sales order. In general, we can OCR any type of document and create a transaction out of that inside of Nav and BC if the information is present in the document or inside of BC. Do you have to be a full BC user to approve documents or expenses? No, you don't. A limited Nav license or a team member license for BC is sufficient. And those are very affordable. So you can engage the people in the business without having to give them a full BC user. One question we often get, do you still support Nav? Yes, we do. In fact, we have customers still running Nav 3.7. Our September release from last September supports Nav going back to 3.7. So we still going to support that moving forward as well. We make sure that customers that are for some reason waiting to upgrade or are kind of stuck at the moment can still use our products. And if you are looking at upgrading, but the upgrade is a little while out, we can certainly help you as well. It is very easy to upgrade Continia later on, or upgrade when you upgrade your ERP to move some of the setups from one environment to the other. Continia makes that very seamless, so we can install it right now on your Nav, and then by the time you upgrade in a year or two, or later, even in some cases I heard, we can certainly help you, and we're happy to work with the Innovia consultants to put a plan in place on how that would look for you. How is it priced? It is slightly different if you are an on-premise or a Nav customer, but moving forward, if you are a Business Central SaaS client, it is all based on how many documents you process, how many expense users do you have, and how many of those are active, and how many emails do you send out for the respective products. So it's usage-based. It allows you to have a very quick payback because you're really only paying for it as you use it. Again, it's slightly different for Nav and BC users, but also there the payback is very, very quickly. Again, happy to help you get to some of this pricing. Our pricing is very transparent. It's on our website, but if you have specific questions or specific scenarios you want us to walk through, reach out to your Innovia rep, and they'll bring us in the loop if necessary, but we can have a discussion on your specific pricing as well, of course. So now we get to demo time. I'll switch from the PowerPoint to my Business Central environment, and I'll refresh the screen here quickly. So I'm going to show you a little bit of document capture for AP automation, right? If you would like to see the other products, unfortunately, we don't have time for that today. But again, happy to do custom demos and work with the Innovia team on showing what you need and go into your specific scenarios. You should recognize the screen from BC. You see some very specific Continia functionality. Since we're built inside, we have our own role center, and you can use elements for that to your liking. Of course, you can design it the exact way you want it to be. How do documents get to Business Central? Well, ideally, we monitor the email inbox that these documents come in on. So we'll set up an email address if you don't already have one for your AP invoices, using your domain, of course, and then we'll monitor that email box and automatically process on all the PDF attachments that come in through that email box. They get OCR'd automatically, object character recognition for those that are unfamiliar with that term. So we're reading the entire document, and then we import the data into Nav and BC. From that moment on, I will be able to search through the entire document. We have a search index that allows you to search for free text, anything that's in that document to pull up, including also the original PDFs that were sent to you and the email that they were sent with. We can also register documents manually. So we have 15 that we have to manually register, or we could automate it further. As I mentioned a couple times throughout this presentation today, you choose the level of automation that you'd like, and you can choose that also on a vendor-specific level if you want to. One invoice is already out for approval. If a document was matched to a purchase order or a purchase receipt, it would already be in the release purchase invoices queue. Or even post it if that's the level of automation that you'd like to go for. If you scroll down, then you can see that we have a bunch of document categories standard available. We'll focus today on the purchase invoices, but as I mentioned, we can also create sales orders based off of a customer PO that you receive, and any of the other types of documents. And these are easy to expand on or customize if you have specific needs with specific documents. One we often get, for example, in the food industry, is certain certificates or import papers and things like that. As long as there is a piece of data in there that ties it to a transaction in Nav and BC, we read the file and we bring it to the right location for you, automatically, of course, if we can. If we open the purchase invoices category, you see a list of the documents that came through, and you see also highlighted on the right-hand side where data comes from. If I select a value, you see then highlighted where it comes from. So I can scroll through these and I can see what information was captured from. In this scenario, we're running semi-automated. The document is marked as okay, and normally these would process automatically and in the background. But for the purpose of this demo, I wanted to walk you through some of these examples. And you can always teach the system new tricks as well. If you want to, for example, capture the posting description, all you do is click in the fields for posting description and drag and drop a box around the posting description. And you see that data is now entered here automatically. It will also remember this now. So next time we receive an invoice from Lewis Home Furniture, it knows exactly where to find the posting description. And for each vendor, you can define the rules. And this vendor is semi-automated, and that's because we left step number 2 blank. If we would like to automate this vendor further, all we need to do is tell it what the second step is. Is that to submit it for approval, releasing it, or posting it? So you define the level of automation, you define what the next step is for this particular vendor. If something is applicable to all your vendors, then you would make this modification on the master template where you define what is the default for each and every vendor. If you have a vendor where you're doing more matching of purchase orders and purchase receipts, then step number 1 could be match to an order and create invoices, or match and update the order, right? If you want to do partial, for example. We can also just create the journal lines based off of an invoice. And then you see the level of depth that we have, what other things you would like to do. If you're recognizing lines, you'll see that we also have more features available for line matching. What do we want to match for on the lines? So you can really control the mechanics of the accuracy of the matching. If you want to be very strict, then you put up more rules. If you don't want to be, or that vendor doesn't give you all the appropriate information, you can be a little bit more loose as well. You could also choose to just match on a header level. You don't have to match on a line level, although for a 3-way match, that's obviously the recommended route. But you can allow for a variance either in an amount or a percentage. You can choose whether we match to the receipt or the order, one of the two specifically. And if we put it to receipt only, we're obviously doing that 3-way match. So only if we also receive the goods will we proceed and generate the invoice. If you partially receive the goods, we only generate an invoice for the goods that you've received in that setup. down here, you also see what fields we're going to be looking for. And this is another example of how deeply integrated we are into Nav and VC. If you have custom fields or in your Nav, or you work with other add-ons that are part of the AP processing, or you want them to play a role in, you can enter any field from Nav or VC to be part of this process. You can tell it where, what tables we need to be looking at. If I change this to a lookup, for example, you can see we can look up to any table that you have present in your installation, including those of other ISVs. So it allows for a lot of very specific rules if you need to. We try to keep it simple if we can, but if you need a further level of integration, Continua is the way to do it. We can even create rules and formulas if certain information is missing, but we're able to calculate it based off of other information that we have available to us, either in the document or inside of VC. Here's a document that was able to match, right? You see it's fully matched with purchase order 1003. We found the PO number and we were able to find the PO inside of VC, and it was able to match that up completely for you. Here's an example where we recognize the lines. You can see all the data is captured. When I now process this document manually, which it can also do automatically, of course, as you saw before, you see we have a registered invoice, we have the original file attached, and we have the invoice right here. I'll send this out for approval quickly. Also, that is a step that normally is automated. So if we go here, you see we now have 2 purchase invoices out for approval. And this is a little bit of a change for some of our customers. We're going to have the system do a lot of the heavy lifting initially, and then we're going to ask the approvers to give their input to avoid that finance is spending a lot of time on documents that are maybe not even valid. If you need to, you have access to all the information, of course, right? It's in VC. You can always see that it's pending approval by who, what the amounts are, what the due dates are. That information is present. You can attach additional files throughout the life cycle of the document as well by just dragging and dropping them over. That's a standard feature that you can use in Continua. But the approvers would have gotten an email now, and we would normally not really bother the finance team if we don't have to. And the email goes out only if they have documents to approve. And in the email is a link to this web approval portal that also has a mobile view that allows approvers to approve when they're traveling, for example. There's single sign-on available, so no additional passwords for them to remember. And then when they get into the web approval portal, they see the same list of documents that they saw in the email, and they can interact with the data on there if you allow them to, right? So they can help you code these documents if you want them to do so. They can select what dimension is applicable, or maybe you work with the jobs and the tasks module. We put that in here, right? We let that be columns, and we can make fields even mandatory for them to submit some of that information. So I could choose what dimension is applicable, but I can only choose the dimensions that I'm associated with. I can add comments, I can attach additional files, and I can simply approve it, and then it jumps to the next line. I can also reject the document, then it goes back to either the previous approver or to the finance team with an alert that it was rejected. I can also forward it. So if I want the input from somebody else, then there's 3 different ways of forwarding that I can use. If I have the permission to do so, I could even change the GL accounts that I work with, but you can see it's limited. So you could also limit what GLs the approver sees to kind of avoid that they put stuff on different departments that they're not associated with. But if I approve this as well, then that's all we need to do. If we're back in VC and refresh the screen, you see we have 2 release purchase invoices. And this could be the very first time that finance sees this. Let's quickly post this document so you can see the result of that as well. It posts exactly as you would post a manual invoice. You see the other one is not done yet. You could also do a batch post, but if we now go to the posted purchase invoices and we find the same vendor. Here is our document. You also keep the image of the document on the posted invoice, and you have the original file attached. You also now have a approval log available with very detailed information that auditors will love, where you show exactly who looked at it and when, and how much time it took for them to approve it. If it's multiple approvers, you get a long list here of all the approvers that have been engaged on the document, of course. And you could go even as far that each line could be associated with a different dimension and therefore needs to be approved by a different approver. So you can have a very detailed log here for you. What is also nice is that we hook into the navigate function from BC and Nav. So if you are working in the general ledger or an auditor is, and they want to see, okay, what invoice is this about? You can just click on navigate, and then it also allows you to open the document, capture document from that same screen. So here we go. You see the exact document, where what information was captured from, and you have the attachment available. That's the PDF that the vendor sent to you right there. So you don't have to search for that anymore either. The last thing I want to show you is that search function that I was mentioning earlier. So if I click document search and I search for the word Xiang, for example, you can see we have 3 documents that have that word on there. One of them is registered, and it's invoice 1001. If I view document card here, then you can see it also pulls up the document card view, but through a different way, through a text search. I can also open the original file and the email that it came in with, but you can see the word Xiang is not used as data that I captured, but it's listed on the document. And because we have our own search index based on everything we OCR, it will prompt you the documents that word is in, simply because we are able to search for that beyond just what standard BC can. And with that, we get to the end of the demo portion. Let me quickly jump back to my PowerPoint. There's all kinds of ways that we can work with you. Put a couple QR codes on the screen. So we have a lot of demos out on our YouTube channel. We have other ways that you can interact with us. And of course, you can work with your customer engagement specialist from Innovia to set up additional meetings for us as well. And I think there we are at the end of the presentation. And Angie, I'm happy to take questions if there are any, of course.
Thank you, Chris. No questions have come through yet, but we do encourage you all to ask any questions. So if you do have any, please go ahead and put them in the questions box so we can get them addressed. While we're waiting on that, I just have a couple of things that I wanted to review with everyone. So we have a couple things on our website that I just want to remind you of. We do have our conference page, and coming up on the next event date that we have is Dynamics Con Live. So you can check out our conference page at innovia.com/conferences and register for Dynamics Con Live. And don't forget to use the registration code that is on there. And also our Innovia Conversation podcast. We have a library of podcasts for you to listen to, and you can find out about all those on our podcast page, and that's innovia.com/podcast. And we do have a question that came through from Alonzo. So Alonzo is asking, is the solution web-based, or do you provide objects to import into our Business Central?
It depends. So the solution for Nav and Business Central on-prem, yes, we'll provide either objects or extensions depending on the version of the ERP you're on. If you're on Business Central Cloud or SaaS, we are an app in app source. So all of that is automatically taken care of. So it's not web-based in that sense. You saw me demoing it in the web client of Business Central, but we supported any version of Nav and DC, as I mentioned. So depending on what version you're on, it's either an object, an extension, or just an app install.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions that anyone wants to address with Chris? All right, well, I will take that as that is all that we have for you today, Chris. Thank you for presenting, and thank you everyone who have attended our webinar today, or if you're watching on demand, we thank you for taking the time out to join us.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody.
And a couple other announcements real quick before we all go. We do have our training workshop page up with some workshops available for you. So if you go to innovia.com/workshops, you can check out the different workshops that we have and the one that fits your role. And as always, please check out our upcoming events. And that's innovia.com/events for all of our different events that we have coming up. So. All right, well, we thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you again, Chris, for presenting, and we look forward to seeing you soon on another Innovia webinar. Take care,
Fantastic. Have a
everyone.
nice day.
You too.